civilian airship that's blown off course due to the wind. What say you?
Well, this is a pretty classic script that we're watching be acted out. It's an intelligence operation, and they are intended to be out of the public eye and confidential, even if the country that is being targeted is aware of them. And there's a lot of kabuki dancing and that goes on in intelligence, so that each country can avoid having to deal with a problem, a diplomatic incident. But when there is a flap, which is the CIA term for when an operation goes wrong, then there are classic steps that play out. And in this instance, the balloon was noticed, and it was noticed was made public. So the classic response of the perpetrator is to say, "Oh my goodness, there must be some mistake. It was a low-level person who exceeded his orders, or it was a balloon that blew off course that was trying to measure temperatures in the stratosphere." And that's what's playing out now. So far, it has followed the classic pattern of intelligence operations that are detected, and a slap on the wrist is given. In this instance, that is, it be made public, and also that the Secretary of State's visit be postponed. And now the next thing that would probably happen, if this follows the pattern where countries want to avoid escalation, is that the Chinese will say, "Oh, so sorry," and they will back off for a time. But we'll see.
Let me say this though. I mean, why would China use a balloon, which sounds so early 20th century? You know, a balloon, a massive thing that everyone can see, when it can use satellites that might not be so obvious.
Well, that's a very good question. And clearly, we all know that the Chinese have sophisticated spy satellites. Now, an argument can be made that the sensors that would be placed on a balloon at 60,000 feet might have greater capabilities for collection, probably do, than a spy satellite, which is 300 kilometers, 200 miles above the ground. But that raises the question as to why the Chinese would do something that is so easily detectable. We can surmise, but we don't know. My guess is that it fits into actually what is an explicit policy of the Chinese government under Xi Jinping, which is called wolf warrior diplomacy. And that is it's not just a sexy term, it's a formal approach, which is that the Chinese, on any issue that they view in their national interest, will push using all means possible, diplomatic, intelligence, military, public diplomacy, until the other side decides that its vital interests are at stake and pushes back to the point of a military clash, at which point then China would back off. So that's it.
I'm just wondering, you know, what the Chinese would be looking for from that height, and I suppose I also want to know what the conversations, the back channel conversations, might be like as a result of this. Will the US be saying, "Hey, back off," and will the Chinese say, "Well, you do this too"?
Right. Well, what are they looking for? Clearly, you can use photography from overhead, but you also have electronics intelligence. You can pick up with various devices, all different kind of radio waves and emissions from rockets, from bases, from aircraft, in ways that exceed my expertise. I wasn't one of the technical people. You can do that from space too, but it is 200 miles further away. So that's what they're probably seeking to do. How does the conversation go? It really is a classic pattern. Countries know that others conduct intelligence operations against them. Often they are not detected. When they are, either the counterintelligence authorities decide, we will let this play out to see what the other side is capable of and what they're doing, and then we can feed them misinformation. Or the decision is taken, we're going to put a stop to this. This is a problem. Our sovereignty is involved, and so on. And that's what's happened here. There have been Chinese balloons that have flown over the United States in recent years But this is the first one I'm aware of that was made public. Why? It was decided to put a stop to this. So two steps were taken. One, it was made public, and two, the government approached the U.S. approached the Chinese and said, "Hey, you're doing this. This is not acceptable. You have to put a stop to it." The classic response is just what we've heard. The Chinese, at first, actually, to my surprise, were a little confused, and they said, "Oh, we're looking into it. We don't know." And then after a day, they said, and I should have placed a bet on this because I could have earned a lot of money. They said, "Oh, so sorry. It's an errant weather balloon." Um, this is what one says about overhead things. It's what the United States said in 1960 when the U-2 spy plane that the U.S. was flying over the Soviet Union was shot down. And at first, the Eisenhower administration, the president of the United States then, said, "Oh, it's just meteorological research that somehow went off course. So sorry." That's where we are.
And it gave rise some many years later to Bono on YouTube. There we go. Ha!